The old academy on planet Xyrath was a place of shining glass towers and humming lights, but deep below, in the silent halls, worked one man no one noticed, a human janitor named Eli Ward. He wore a faded gray uniform, carried a mop that looked older than him, and moved slowly through the empty corridors every night. The alien students passed by him during the day and never looked twice. To them, he was just a human, one of the last of his kind, too weak, too poor, and too quiet to matter. But when everyone else left and the halls grew silent, Eli began his second life, and the one nobody knew about. He cleaned the floor carefully, humming softly, but his mind wasn't on the dirt. He was thinking of home, a small room in the old maintenance quarters where two little girls waited for him. They weren't human. They were small, with light blue skin and silver eyes that shimmered even in darkness. They were his daughters, or at least he called them that. The truth was much stranger. Years ago, Eli had found them inside a broken escape pod at the edge of the academy's waste field. The pod was half buried in dust and fire, with smoke rising into the sky. Inside were two tiny alien babies crying without sound. They were deaf. He had held them close and felt their trembling. He couldn't just walk away, so he took them home, fed them, and raised them as his own. He named them Lyra and Nomi. Now they were 6 years old. They couldn't hear his voice, but they could read his hands. Eli had learned their sign language through old holograms and long nights. His rough, work-worn fingers moved gently whenever he spoke to them. Sometimes, when they laughed without sound, his heart ached with pride and fear together, because if anyone found out what he had done, keeping alien children without permission, he would be sent away, maybe even executed. Humans weren't allowed to adopt alien children on Xyrath, but he couldn't give them up. Every night he saved the small coins he earned, hiding them in an old toolbox. He dreamed of buying a small ship one day and flying away with his girls to a quiet moon where no one would care about laws or bloodlines. As Eli finished cleaning the last hall, he saw two alien officers walk by, their golden armor shining. They were talking loudly about something that made his hand stop moving. "The Queen herself is coming to the academy," one said. "She is searching for someone. 2 royal children taken by pirates years ago." "Royal blood," the other officer replied. "They say their marks glow under moonlight." Eli froze. His heart pounded hard. His mop slipped from his hand and clattered against the floor. One of the officers looked back for a second but didn't care enough to speak. They walked away, leaving Eli standing alone in the echoing hall. Royal children, taken by pirates? His mind flashed back to the night he found Lyra and Nomi. The broken ship, the strange symbols on their wrists, the way their blood shimmered faintly silver when they were hurt. Could it be? No, it couldn't, could it? He picked up the mop and forced himself to keep cleaning, but his hands were shaking. His world felt like it was tilting. If what he just heard was true, then his daughters weren't orphans. They were missing princesses of the Xyrath Empire. And if the Queen was truly coming here, everything he had built could be destroyed. Later that night, Eli walked home through the quiet streets. The air was cold, carrying the hum of alien skycraft passing above. When he entered his small home, 2 small shapes ran to him, Lyra and Nomi, their eyes bright with joy. They wrapped their tiny arms around his legs. He smiled, dropping his tool bag, and hugged them back tightly. He sat with them by the small fire, showing them how to spell new words on the old screen: home, love, safe. The girls clapped their hands and giggled silently. But when they fell asleep, Eli sat awake, staring at the flickering flame. He thought about the words he heard: royal blood, missing twins. He looked at the girls curled up together under the blanket. Their glowing wrists shimmered faintly in the firelight, the same royal mark he had seen before. He rubbed his tired face, whispering to himself, "What have I done?" Outside, thunder rolled across the city. Far above, in the dark sky, a massive ship slowly descended through the clouds, the royal insignia burning bright on its hull. The Queen of Xyrath had arrived. Eli didn't know it yet, but his quiet life as a janitor was about to end forever. The next morning, the twin suns rose over the glowing towers of the academy, painting the skies with soft gold and violet. Inside his small home, Eli Ward was already awake. He stood by the window, watching the distant royal ship floating like a silent storm cloud above the city. His hands trembled as he poured a cup of hot synth tea. The smell of metal and dust filled the air. Behind him, Lyra and Nomi were playing on the floor, building shapes from old machine parts he had brought from work. Their little faces were bright and full of joy, unaware of the danger hanging above them. When Lyra accidentally dropped a part and it rolled toward Eli's foot, he turned and smiled. She signed with her small hands. "Sorry, Papa." He knelt down and touched her hair gently. "It's okay," he signed back, his rough hands moving slowly so she could understand. Nomi giggled silently, showing him a glowing wristband she had found inside an old crate. The band shimmered with strange patterns, the same kind he had seen on the Queen's soldier's armor. His smile faded for a moment. Eli took the band carefully, pretending it was nothing. But inside, fear twisted his chest. Everything about the twins seemed to point toward one terrible truth. The color of their blood, the marks on their skin, the faint glow when the moons rose, it all matched the royal bloodline of Xyrath. He had been raising the lost heirs of the Empire, and the Queen was here now, searching for them. He looked at the girls, sitting side by side, signing to each other and laughing silently. He couldn't lose them. They were his family. That day at the academy, the halls were crowded with guards and strange officials wearing black cloaks with the Queen's emblem. Eli kept his head down as he mopped the floor near the main entrance. He listened carefully, pretending not to hear, but every word from the guards reached him clearly. "They say the Queen is furious," one guard whispered. "She's been searching for her daughters for 6 years. Some say she'll burn the whole city if she has to." Another guard added, "Her daughters were taken by humans during the border war. If she finds any humans involved, they'll be executed on sight." Eli's mop froze mid-swipe. His throat went dry. He slowly moved again, forcing himself to breathe normally, but inside, panic screamed. That evening, when he returned home, the twins ran to him, waving small drawings they had made on scraps of paper. One showed the three of them holding hands under a blue sky. The other showed a tall woman with a crown, drawn in shaky lines, standing beside them. Eli's heart nearly stopped. "Who is this?" he asked with his hands. Lyra smiled and signed. "A lady from my dream." She looked sad. "She called my name." Eli sat down, his knees weak. The Queen's face had never been shown to them, yet Lyra had described her perfectly. He knew now that blood was calling to blood and time was running out. That night, while the twins slept, Eli packed a small bag, water, credits, and the few tools he owned. He opened an old map and traced a path toward the outer desert. There was an abandoned port there. He could fix one of the old ships and escape before anyone found them. But as he folded the map, a deep hum filled the air. The ground shook slightly, and the window glowed red from the light of descending royal crafts. He looked outside and saw soldiers landing in the streets. "Too late," he whispered. He shook the twins gently awake. They blinked sleepily, confused. He knelt in front of them, signing slowly. "We have to leave now, quiet, no sound. Understand?" They nodded, scared but trusting him completely. Eli grabbed their small hands and led them through the narrow alley behind the maintenance tunnels. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Alarms echoed in the distance as the royal troops began searching each sector. They hid behind an old junk heap when soldiers passed. Lyra held Nomi's hand tightly. Eli looked up at the sky. The Queen's flagship was closer now, its shadow covering the moonlight. For a moment he thought about giving up, about handing the twins over to their real mother. Maybe they would be safe in the palace. But then he remembered the stories. How humans were treated as thieves, how mercy was rare among the royals. He couldn't risk it. When the soldiers moved away, he hurried toward the underground passage that led to the academy. He knew every tunnel, every door. If he could reach the lower hangar, they could hide until the Queen's fleet left. But as he stepped into the dim tunnel, a voice echoed behind him, metallic, cold, and filled with power. "Stop right there, human." Eli turned slowly. Standing in the tunnel's blue light was a tall figure in silver armor. Her eyes glowed faintly, and behind her trailed a long cape of royal blue. The mark on her crown matched the symbols on his daughter's wrists. It was the Queen of Xyrath herself. For a moment, neither moved. The twins clung to Eli's legs, trembling. The Queen's sharp gaze fell on the glowing marks on their arms. Her expression froze, shifting from anger to disbelief. Eli's breath caught in his throat. The truth he had hidden for 6 years now stood face to face with him. The past had finally found them, The tunnel was silent except for the faint hum of power flowing through the queen's armor. Her glowing eyes focused on Eli, then on the two small girls gripping his legs. For a long moment no one moved. Even the air seemed frozen in fear. Eli's hands twitched, instinctively moving to shield the twins behind him. His heart thundered so hard it hurt. The Queen of Zirath, the most feared ruler in the galaxy, stood only a few steps away. Her presence was like a storm made of light and fire. The narrow passage felt too small to contain her power. "Human," she said softly, her voice echoing like metal against stone. "Who are those children?" Eli's mouth went dry. He wanted to lie, to say they were refugees, orphans, anyone but who they really were. But his voice refused to come out. The girls clung tighter to his legs. "They're mine," he said finally, his voice breaking. "My daughters." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Yours?" She repeated, the word dripping with disbelief. "You dare claim royal blood as your own?" Eli swallowed hard. He didn't understand everything. Royal blood, lost heirs, but he knew one thing. He would not let anyone take them. "I found them," he said, his voice low but steady. "They were alone. No one came for them. So I did." The queen took one slow step forward. Her armor gleamed like liquid silver. The corridor lights flickered as if afraid. She stopped only an arm's length away from Eli and looked down at the twins. The girls stared up at her, their wide silver eyes full of confusion. They didn't know who she was. Lyra raised her small hands and signed softly. "Papa, who is she?" The queen's expression faltered. Her gaze softened for just a second. She knew that sign. She had seen it once before in a palace nursery long ago, when her twin daughters had been learning their first words. Her heart clenched, but her mind refused to believe it. Behind her, guards appeared, blasters ready. "Your Majesty," one said, "we found traces of human habitation. Should we detain them?" The queen didn't answer. She just stared at Eli. "Bring them to the main hall," she finally commanded. Her tone was cold again. "We will see the truth there." Eli wanted to run, but there was nowhere left to go. The guards surrounded them. He felt the small hands of Lyra and Nomi gripping his shirt, trembling but silent. He bent down and signed, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." They nodded, tears welling in their eyes. As they walked through the corridors of the academy, aliens bowed low, whispering in fear. The queen had not set foot in this place for years, and now she returned, escorted by soldiers, followed by a human janitor and two strange children. When they entered the grand hall, the queen stood tall on the platform as light poured through the high windows. She turned to her soldiers. "Leave us," she said. The guards hesitated but obeyed, closing the great doors behind them. Now only 4 remained, the queen, Eli, and the 2 girls. The queen's gaze was sharp as a blade. "You will tell me everything," she said. "Where did you find them?" Eli took a slow breath. 6 years ago, he began. "I was working at the waste fields near the old academy. There was a crash, an escape pod. When I opened it, I found them. Both crying, both deaf." His voice trembled. "I took them home. I didn't know who they were." The queen's eyes flickered. "And yet you kept them." "Yes," Eli said, "because no one else would." He looked down at his calloused hands. "They needed food, care, a father. I couldn't leave them." The queen's breathing grew uneven. Slowly, she stepped closer and knelt before the twins. "What are your names?" she asked. The girls looked at each other, unsure. Then Lyra raised her small hands and signed, "I'm Lyra, this is Nomi." The queen froze. The names struck her like lightning. They were the same names she had given her daughters, the names carved into the memorial stone she visited every year. Her throat tightened. Eli saw her eyes glisten. For the first time, she didn't look like a queen. She looked like a mother, but she quickly stood again, hiding her emotion behind a mask of power. "You understand what this means, human," she said coldly. "You took what belonged to me, to my bloodline. The law says your kind should be punished for this." Eli stepped forward, his voice firm. "Then punish me," he said. "But don't hurt them. They're innocent." The queen stared at him, silent. For a moment, only the soft hum of her armor filled the hall. The twins, sensing the tension, moved closer to her. Nomi reached out with a tiny hand and touched the queen's glove. The queen flinched but didn't pull away. Something inside her broke. She turned away sharply, her voice shaking. "Prepare the council chamber," she told the guards outside. "A judgment will be held at dawn." Eli's heart sank. He knew what that meant. Public trial, punishment, separation. As the guards led them out, the queen stood still, watching the small girls disappear behind the heavy doors. When the last echo faded, she touched the mark on her wrist and whispered to the empty room, "My daughters, could it really be you?" The night outside was restless, filled with storm winds. But inside the queen's heart, another storm had begun, one between duty and love, law and blood. And by morning, every world under her rule would know the name of the human janitor who defied a queen. The great palace of Zereth stood high above the city, its silver towers gleaming like blades in the light of dawn. Inside, the echo of footsteps filled the marble halls as royal guards prepared for the queen's judgment. Word had already spread. The human janitor who had dared to keep the missing royal twins was being brought before the throne. Some whispered that he would be executed by sunrise. Others whispered that the queen had wept when she saw the children. Eli walked between two guards, his wrists bound by glowing cuffs. He didn't resist. His eyes were calm but tired, his heart heavy. Ahead of him, the twins were carried gently by two royal attendants. They looked frightened and small, their little hands searching for him in the crowd. When he saw them look back, he smiled, just enough to tell them everything would be okay, even if it wasn't. The queen sat on her throne, her face unreadable. Her armor was gone, replaced by dark royal robes that shimmered with silver light. The council chamber filled with nobles, advisors, and high officers, all waiting for her word. The moment Eli entered, the room went silent. "This is the human," one advisor whispered. "The janitor who stole the royal bloodline?" Eli was forced to kneel. The queen stood slowly. "You know who I am," she said, her voice soft but sharp. "You know what these children mean to me." Eli raised his head slightly. "Yes," he said. "Now I do." "Then you understand the weight of what you've done," she said. He nodded. "I understand. That they needed someone. And I was there." The words hung in the air. Some council members hissed in anger. Others looked away uncomfortably. The queen motioned toward the girls. "Bring them forward." The twins were led to her side. The queen's hand trembled as she brushed a lock of hair from Lyra's face. When the light hit the girl's wrists, the marking shimmered. Two identical glowing symbols, the royal crest of Zerath. Gasps filled the hall. "There can be no doubt," said one of the ministers. "They are the true heirs." The queen closed her eyes. For a moment she looked lost, torn between two worlds, her duty as ruler and her heart as a mother. Eli's voice broke the silence. "If you must punish someone, punish me," he said. "But please, don't take them from me. They're just children. They don't understand." The queen's eyes flashed open. "You think I would harm them?" she asked, her tone heavy with pain. "You think I do not love them?" Eli said nothing. He only looked at her, and in that moment she saw truth in his tired eyes. He wasn't a thief. He wasn't a criminal. He was just a man who had loved two children the way she had once dreamed to. One of the guards shouted, "Your Majesty, the human must be judged according to law." But the queen raised her hand. "Enough," she turned toward Eli. "You claim to love them." "Then prove it," Eli frowned. "How?" "Let them go," she said. "If your love is pure, you'll release them willingly. They belong with their true mother, not a janitor who hides in tunnels." The room grew cold. Everyone waited for Eli's answer. He looked at the twins, his heart breaking. The girls clung to each other, shaking their heads. Lyra signed with trembling fingers. "We don't want to go. We want Papa." The queen frowned in confusion. "What did she say?" Eli's voice cracked as he translated. "She said they don't want to leave me." A murmur spread across the room. Some nobles whispered that the children were confused. Others said they had been brainwashed. The queen's hands clenched into fists. She turned away, struggling to breathe. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "I will decide his fate at sunset," she said finally. "Until then, take them to the east chambers." The guards moved forward, separating Eli from the twins. Nomi screamed without sound, reaching for him as they pulled her away. Lyra tried to fight, kicking one of the guards, but they were too small, too weak. Eli shouted, "Please, don't hurt them," but his voice was lost in the noise. When the great doors closed, silence fell again. The queen stood alone, her hands trembling. She looked down at her palms. Tiny handprints from when her daughters had touched her still glowed faintly on her skin. She whispered to herself, "They called you Papa. They called you home." Later that night, she walked alone into the royal nursery, untouched for years, covered in dust and cobwebs. On the old wall, 2 small drawings still hung there. One of her holding 2 babies. The other, a tall man with kind eyes and rough hands, Eli Ward. Tears finally slipped from her eyes. She turned to her reflection in the mirror and said quietly, "Tomorrow the law will demand his death." Her voice cracked. "But my heart is not so sure." Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing across the sky. The city lights dimmed as if the stars themselves were waiting for dawn. A dawn that would decide whether mercy or vengeance would rule the heart of a queen. And in the dark cell below, Eli whispered to the twins through the vent above his head, "I'm still here, my girls. Don't be afraid. I promised I'd never leave you." He pressed his hand against the cold metal wall, and 2 tiny hands pressed back from the other side. They couldn't hear his voice, but they felt his love, stronger than fear, stronger than fate. The dawn light crept through the narrow window of Eli's prison cell, cold and pale. The sound of footsteps echoed outside. Guards changing shift, metal boots striking stone. He hadn't slept all night. His mind replayed the moment when they took Lyra and Nomi away, their silent cries haunting him. Every heartbeat whispered the same fear. What if I never see them again? He sat with his back against the wall, his wrists still bruised from the cuffs. His mop, his tools, his tiny world, and all gone. All that remained was love and the ache of knowing it might not be enough. When the heavy door opened, Eli squinted as bright light filled the room. 2 guards stepped aside and the queen entered. She wasn't wearing her crown. Her long cloak flowed behind her like a shadow. Her eyes looked tired, as if she hadn't slept either. "You should kneel," one of the guards barked. The queen lifted her hand. "Leave us." The guards hesitated, then obeyed. The door shut with a deep metallic thud. The queen stood there silently for a moment, watching him. Eli slowly rose to his feet. "I didn't expect you to come here," he said quietly. "I had to see the man who risked everything for what was mine," she replied. Eli met her gaze. "They were never yours when I found them," he said softly. "They were alone. They were dying." Her jaw tightened. "You had no right to keep them." "I had no choice," he said. "They needed someone, and I was the only one there." The queen's eyes flickered. Anger and pain tangled together. "You call them your daughters, but they are my blood, my heirs. My people died looking for them." "I believe you," Eli said, his voice shaking but calm. "But they didn't die for those girls. They lived for power, for thrones. I just gave them a home." The queen stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You dare question my love for them?" Eli sighed. "Love isn't about blood, Your Majesty. It's about being there when no one else is." The words hit her like a blade. For a long time she didn't speak. The only sound was the low hum of the energy barrier outside the cell. Finally she said quietly, "You know what the law demands." "Yes," Eli said. "Death, you stole royal heirs. It is treason by every code of the Empire." Eli nodded slowly. "If that's what you need to do, I won't beg for myself. But please, don't separate them. Don't let the council use them as trophies." The queen turned away, hiding the tremor in her hands. "You ask for mercy after breaking every law?" "I'm not asking for me," Eli said. "I'm asking for them. They're deaf. They don't understand politics or war. They only know kindness, laughter, warmth. If you take me away, at least let them keep that." She looked back at him, and for a brief second she didn't see a human criminal. She saw a father, a man who had built happiness from nothing. "What would you have done," she whispered, "if I had never come?" Eli smiled faintly. "I would have taught them how to fix engines, how to read stars, and how to grow food in a cold world. And I'd have told them every night that they were loved." The queen's lips parted, but no words came out. Her heart ached in a way no battle or betrayal had ever done. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost breaking. "The council wants your execution at sunset. They say your death will prove my loyalty to the crown." Eli nodded as if he already knew. "But my daughters," she hesitated, catching herself. "They won't stop crying. They signed something this morning." He looked up quickly. "What did they say?" The queen closed her eyes. "They said if Papa dies, we die too." The room fell silent, Eli's breath caught in his throat. He turned away, blinking hard. They shouldn't have to feel that, he whispered. The Queen's voice cracked. You've done something no one else could, human. You gave them love even when I, their mother, could not. She stepped closer to the cell, her eyes glistening. Tell me, Eli Ward, what would you do if I gave you your freedom? He hesitated, unsure if it was a trick. I'd take them somewhere safe, somewhere quiet, away from all this. And if I asked you to stay? She said softly. To help me raise them? As their father? Eli stared at her. The question didn't sound like a command, it sounded like a plea. I'd stay, he said finally, if it's for them. The Queen turned away quickly, brushing a tear from her cheek. Then perhaps there is a way, she whispered. She opened the door, her cloak flowing behind her like midnight smoke. Before stepping out, she looked back once more. At sunset, the world will believe you are gone, she said. But when the stars rise, follow the guards who carry no weapons. Eli's eyes widened. You'd risk everything? For my daughters, she said quietly. And for the man who saved them. When the door closed, Eli sank to his knees, his heart pounding with disbelief. Hope, small, fragile, but real, flickered inside him again. Far above, the palace bells tolled, marking the hours until sunset. But this time, the sound didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something greater, the moment when a queen's law would bow before a human's love. The sun was setting over the crystal spires of Zyrath, painting the sky in red and gold. The palace courtyard was filled with people, nobles, soldiers, servants, even workers from the lower cities. Everyone had gathered to witness the Queen's judgment. Word had spread through every district. The human janitor who stole the royal twins would face his fate today. Eli stood in the center of the great platform, his hands chained but his eyes calm. The twin sons cast long shadows behind him. The Queen sat on her high throne, her expression hidden behind a silver veil. The royal council stood on either side, whispering among themselves like vultures waiting for a meal. Lyra and Nomi were kept inside a crystal enclosure, guarded by 2 soldiers. Their eyes were wide with fear. They couldn't hear the noise of the crowd, but they could see the faces, the anger, the hate. They saw their father standing alone, and they signed to each other with trembling hands. Papa's not afraid. We must be brave too. When the Queen rose, silence fell. Even the wind seemed to stop. Citizens of Zyrath, she began, her voice echoing across the courtyard. For years we searched for the lost heirs of our empire. Today they have been found. But they were not discovered in a palace or a fortress. They were found in the home of a human. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Queen's gaze turned to Eli. This man, a janitor of no rank or title, took what was ours. He hid our bloodline, broke our laws, and lived among us as if he were one of us. Murmurs filled the air. Some shouted for death, others stayed quiet, unsure. Eli met her eyes. He didn't speak, didn't beg. He simply nodded, accepting whatever was coming. The Queen's tone grew colder. According to the laws of Zyrath, such a crime demands execution. But before this judgment is carried out, the accused may speak. Eli's throat was dry, but he lifted his head. I don't know how to speak to royalty, he said slowly. But I know how to tell the truth. The Queen's veil moved slightly, as if she were holding her breath. I didn't steal your children, Eli said. I found them alone, crying hurt. No one came for them, so I did. I gave them food when they were starving, warmth when they were cold, and love when no one else would. He looked at the crowd, at the shimmering faces of aliens staring down at him. You talk about laws and bloodlines, he continued. But love isn't about what you're born as. It's about what you choose to give. Somewhere in the crowd, someone murmured softly. He raised them? Another whispered. He taught them to sign, even though they can't hear? Eli's voice grew quieter, gentler. If I die today, that's fine. But don't take away what they've learned. Kindness, courage, family. They're your princesses. They're also my daughters. I would die for them 1,000 times over, and I wouldn't change a thing. The Queen's hands trembled slightly under her robe. No one else noticed, but her heart was breaking behind that silver veil. Then came a small sound, not from Eli, not from the Queen, but from the crystal enclosure. A sudden sharp tone like metal cracking. Lyra and Nomi had forced their way out. They ran across the courtyard before the guards could stop them. The crowd gasped as the 2 little girls rushed to Eli and threw their arms around him. tears streaming down their faces. Lyra looked up at the queen and signed desperately, "No, he's not bad. He's our father." The queen froze. The words burned into her mind even though they were silent. Eli tried to push the girls away, whispering, "You have to go, please." But they clung tighter. The queen took a slow breath, then stepped down from her throne. The entire courtyard went silent as she approached them. She knelt beside the twins, her hands shaking as she touched their glowing marks. "Lyra," she whispered. "Know me." The girls looked up, confused but curious. The queen's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I lost you forever." Eli bowed his head. "Your Majesty, please. Don't punish them for loving me." The queen stood tall again, her face now uncovered. The silver veil dropped to the ground, revealing eyes filled with pain and love. "Enough," she said, her voice breaking through the silence. "There will be no execution today." The council erupted in outrage. "Your Majesty, you cannot—" "I can," she thundered. "I am the law." The crowd fell to its knees. The queen looked at Eli. "This man," she said, "did not steal my daughters. He saved them. He gave them what even an empire could not, compassion. And for that he will not die." The air trembled with disbelief. She turned to the council. "By royal decree, Eli Ward of Earth is to be pardoned and honored. He will live under my protection, not as a prisoner, but as the royal guardian of my daughters." The crowd erupted in noise, confusion, anger, awe. But Eli heard nothing. He only saw the twins smiling up at him, tears glistening in their silver eyes. The queen stepped closer, whispering so only he could hear. "You were right, human. Love isn't born. It's made." As the sun sank behind the horizon, the light around them dimmed, leaving the four of them standing together. A queen, a human, and two small girls who had changed the fate of a galaxy. And for the first time in years, the queen smiled, not as a ruler but as a mother. The night sky of Zyrath had never looked so alive. 2 moons floated above the crystal towers, and the light of 1,000 airships shimmered like stars in motion. But the city was silent, no cheers, no noise, only awe. For the first time in centuries, the queen had broken the ancient law of blood and chosen mercy over vengeance. And the people didn't know what to make of it. Inside the royal palace, the grand halls that once felt cold now echoed with something new. Laughter. Soft, pure, and bright. It came from 2 little girls chasing a tiny cleaning drone down the corridor. Their blue skin glowed under the moonlight as they giggled soundlessly, their joy filling the silence their ears could not hear. At the far end of the hall, Eli Ward, the once-forgotten human janitor, leaned against his old mop, watching them. He smiled, though the weight of the last few days still lingered in his heart. He wasn't a prisoner anymore. He wasn't even just a janitor. By decree of the queen herself, he was now royal guardian of the heirs of Zyrath. It sounded noble, but in his heart, he was still just a father. The queen entered quietly, dressed not in her armor but in a simple silver robe. No crown, no guards. For the first time, she looked less like a ruler and more like a mother who had found something she thought lost forever. "They're happy," she said softly, standing beside Eli. "They always are," Eli replied. "Children don't see titles. They just see love." The queen nodded, her eyes following the twins. "I used to believe love made you weak, that it distracted from duty, but you've shown me it's the only thing that gives duty meaning." Eli glanced at her. "You don't need to thank me, Your Majesty." She smiled faintly. "Maybe I want to." They stood in silence for a moment, watching as the twins caught the little drone and proudly brought it to them. Lyra signed something quickly with her hands. Eli laughed and signed back. The queen tilted her head. "What did she say?" "She said the drone's name is Spark," Eli said, smiling. "She wants to keep it." The queen's eyes softened. "Then Spark it is." The girls ran off again, their joy lighting the hall like sunrise. The queen's gaze followed them, her voice low. "They signed so beautifully. The movement. It's like a language of light," Eli nodded. "They made it their own. They call it star hands. They say it's how they speak to the universe." The queen smiled. "And to you." He looked down. "Sometimes I wonder if they'll ever forgive me for keeping the truth from them." The queen turned to him. "You didn't keep the truth, Eli. You protected them from a world that wasn't ready for them. You did what I, with all my power, failed to do. You kept them safe. Her words hung between them like a soft glow. For a moment there was no queen, no subject, just two parents bound by love for the same children. Then a royal advisor appeared at the door, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, the council awaits your presence. They wish to speak about your decision regarding the human." The queen's expression darkened slightly, but she nodded. "Tell them they will wait until morning." The advisor hesitated. "But, Your Majesty—" "Until morning," she said firmly. The advisor bowed again and left. The queen exhaled, tired but peaceful. "They still want your head," she said quietly. Eli chuckled. "They can have my mop instead." For the first time, the queen laughed, a real warm laugh that startled even her. "You're a strange man, Eli Ward," he smiled. "Maybe that's why your daughters like me." Her laughter faded into a soft smile. "They do more than like you. They love you, and I think I do too." Eli blinked, unsure if he had heard right. The queen turned away quickly, her silver robe glimmering like moonlight. "As their father," she added, though her voice trembled slightly. Before he could answer, the twins ran up and tugged on their hands. Lyra signed excitedly, "Come see the stars, Papa." "Mama too." The queen froze at the word mama. Slowly, she knelt and touched Lyra's cheek, her eyes full of tears. "Yes," she whispered, "Mama too." They walked together to the palace balcony. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of the gardens below. The city stretched endlessly beneath them, towers, lights, and the faint hum of life. The twins pointed up at the sky where a comet streaked past the moons, painting a bright silver arc. Their faces glowed as they signed to each other about making a wish. Eli smiled. "Do you know what they're wishing for?" The queen shook her head. "Tell me." "They wish," he said softly, "for our family to stay together, forever." The queen closed her eyes, her heart aching and healing all at once. "Then it shall be so." For the first time in Zyrath's long history, the queen didn't speak as a ruler or command as a warrior. She simply promised, as a mother, as a woman, as someone who had found her humanity again. And when dawn finally broke across the horizon, painting the palace in gold, the people of Zyrath looked up and saw something they had never seen before. Their queen standing beside a human, their daughters between them smiling. In that moment, the legend of the human janitor and the alien queen was born, not as a story of rebellion, but as one of hope. Because love had done what war and power never could. It had united two worlds, and so began the new dawn of Zyrath, a world reborn not by blood but by heart.